Hey everybody, this is Seth, founder and CEO of Homestead, with another episode of Let's Talk Experts. I'm joined here today by my Vice President, Ron Hickey, as well as a fantastic power partner company of ours, Wisedocs. And from Wisedocs, we have Connor Atchison, who's the founder and CEO, as well as the head of revenue, Jenna Earnshaw. Welcome, you two.
Thanks, Seth. It's great to be here.
Great to have you. Great to have you. If you guys can, Connor, you can start. Take a minute or two just to introduce yourself, a little bit about Wisedocs, if you can.
Yeah, I'm Connor Atchison, CEO and founder of Wisedocs, and I really kicked the company off a few years back to really tackle the issues around essentially, reviewing medical records and the impact it has on claimants and short-term disability, long-term disability, workers' comp within the insurance ecosystem. And that all started from my background when I was with the federal government. I was administrating claims and was trying to find better processes. And along the way, I actually got pulled into that system and had to go through a short-term disability process myself. And that's what really kind of got the light bulb on and the aha moment of, we got to change this, make it easier for file reviews and expert witnesses, expert opinion, and then also help the claimant navigate that process faster. So that's really the origin and the passion of where I started the business and why it means so much to me.
Wow, that's a great mission. Jenna, introduce yourself, a little bit about you.
Great to see you both again. My name is Jenna Earnshaw, and I'm the head of revenue growth here at Wisedocs. So I've actually been involved in the company since the early days, but kind of taken on more of that growth role in the past year and a half, and it's just been super exciting growing the business. We obviously come from Canada, despite my funny accent. So we've been expanding into the US over the past 18 months, which has been an incredible ride, and super excited to be here today and continue supporting our customers and partners.
We're excited to have you here as well. We're really excited to continue work together. So again, guys, today our title for the video is the intersection between organized records and efficient use of expert time. All right, so we brought together these two great companies to talk about this topic. We've got some great questions. Ron, if you want, let's kick it off.
Yeah, absolutely. So Wisedocs leverages artificial intelligence to organize and index medical records, and the technology, daily it's in the news almost. And with the rise in that technology's popularity, people are starting to become a little bit wary of their job security. So I was curious, how do you think artificial intelligence promotes efficient work rather than taking away from workers' roles and responsibilities?
Yeah, I think, and it's quite a hot topic right now, and I think there's a lot of fear around artificial intelligence. And just recently, with a lot of the releases from OpenAI and ChatGPT, it's come to the forefront. But a lot of this work has been underway and behind the scenes for many years. And that's really where, when we started, we've seen the power of this as a tool, and it's something that can actually be leveraged and not replace the human. And I think it's a misconception that these models can actually be a silver bullet. It isn't a sentient being, at least not yet. So I think at this point in stage, it's really something that can really drive productivity, efficiencies, and just make the job easier when you're pouring over millions and millions of data points and records.
I love that answer, that you're leveraging that tool rather than replacing anybody, right? We're just making the process better than replacing any part of the process. It's wonderful. So next question, what are some of the benefits of having organized medical records? And what is the impact to that expert witness or the litigation team in regards to that organized records?
Yeah, I think in the early days, before I pivoted the business, I was trying to set a very complex system up where it could actually empower the claimant through like a decentralized platform, but then allow the assessors, the clinicians, lawyers, expert witnesses then to access that information so they could actually have more concise and defensible opinions. And I soon realized the narrowness of it, and that's where, when pivoting the business into a broader and more dynamic function, it can actually tailor to everyone within ecosystems, from workers' comp, adjusters, underwriters, lawyers, doctors, the entire gambit of anyone touching that medical record to get a better result and output. So, where it can really help, the expert witness and opinion is essentially you can spend less time finding what's relevant. And then you can bring that time back and get more concise outputs and have more defensibility and win those cases. And I think we spend a lot of time and labor going through very mundane and repetitive tasks, like just page after page, or I'm looking for one snippet of information in thousands of pages. It becomes really daunting and time consuming. So really that's the power of getting an aggregated and organized medical record to allow the end user to get a better result.
Yeah, and not to digress too much, but our two companies had a similar instance where we had a rush case that came in, right? There were some unorganized medical records with a very short turnaround time that we needed. We sent them over to you, and literally, like, I think a day or two, you got them back to us well organized, and the doctor was able to get it done in 3 or 4 hours rather than 10 hours, right, of re-going through all the organized records. So just to kind of add on to that.
Well, and I think it's a really good point, and that's where it kind of goes back to the previous question. The AI isn't replacing, organizations like Homestead. It's what it's doing is you need that support. If anything, it's going to take away all this noise so that the support is there to make it faster, more effective, and better for that doctor. And that's a perfect example of when you combine the two together and you leverage it, the outcome is phenomenal.
The outcome is phenomenal. Yeah. Oh, Jenna, please.
Yeah, I think just to add on to that as well, by the time there needs to be an expert opinion or involved in the case in some capacity, this is typically someone that's pretty injured. And that means that the medical records are quite large. Like, we see medical records that are thousands of pages. We've seen one as big as 52,000 pages. And that is a lot of data for someone to have to move through and make sense of. And we always talk about Wisedocs from this perspective of, imagine reading a book, but all of the pages are in the wrong order and there's actually no page numbers. And so you have to sit there and actually get them into order, write the page numbers on so that you can tell the story from the beginning to the end before even reading the story. And that's how we like to think about the Wisedocs solution is it's getting everything that's unorganized, things that have come from all these different facilities, all these different providers, and getting and making sense of it quicker. So it's a much better impact on the actual individual that's reviewing the record.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds great. You guys are definitely solving a major problem. I mean, we've definitely in the past have sent disorganized records over to an expert. What comes back is a 30-hour bill, and that 30-hour bill then has to go over to the attorney, and now we've got an upset client, right? So it's a win-win situation by having organized medical records for our experts, for not only for the expert, for the end client as well. So it's great. It's great. Mr. Ron.
Yeah, I was curious. As we know, medical experts are frequently called upon in personal injury mitigation and medical malpractice cases to provide expert testimony. How does Wisedocs organized records support the medical experts in those duties?
Yeah, I can chime in on that one. It's really, you want to have a defensible position. And I think, it's really easy to say you can just organize a record, but you need to understand how and why you're organizing it in the fashion that you're looking for. For example, if it's a musculoskeletal injury, maybe there's a lot of information there that you don't need. And how do we actually surface that to the top so that that individual can actually just master that understanding of that knowledge and provide a really solid testimony and defensibility. And that's really the part and parcel of why our system works so well. We know that nothing fits in perfectly in one box. It has to actually be essentially configured so that individuals using it can get that result, right?
Yeah, listen, as far as expert witness goes and how organized records help, there are so many times where an attorney will send over records, not only that they're disorganized, that we don't have a very clear understanding of what we're supposed to be looking for, right? Mm-hmm. They send over an injury. Are we talking about the back here? Are we talking about the nerve? What are we talking about? And what kind of, so having that clarity from the medical record standpoint, not only helps us as an expert witness company match the right expert, but gives the expert clarity quicker, right? Awesome. Yeah. It's awesome. So with generative AI taking place now, guys, how does, and we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but how does the AI that you guys use differ from the traditional methodology of kind of parsing through them manually with some, actual people?
So I think when it comes to the generative AI and what's really hot in the market at the moment, people are looking at it and they're like, wow, I can just like plug information in and get a summary. But there's the clinical context that people also need to understand about that page or about that medical record that generative AI can't do, because it's looking at all of the information. So you have to be really specific with generative AI and how you apply it, to be very specific to, this is the clinical information that needs to be summarized, and these are the ways that we are looking at it. So there's a lot of direction that needs to happen to actually be able to use it in a meaningful way. And when we think about kind of the progression of AI and where we are now and where we've been, and the difference between someone doing it manually, like if we take a summary, for example, we take, the ability to move through a medical record and find key information. Yeah, it used to be 100% manual. You have to go through it with a highlighter and you're highlighting key things and looking for comorbidities or looking for whether something was mentioned or where it wasn't. We then moved to kind of a period where we've been for the past couple of years, which is entity extraction. So being able to move through a medical record and actually extract key information. And what's really exciting now is this generative AI that's coming out. It's not only able to move through the medical record and extract key information, but also turn that into a sentence or a summary. That means you can read it like we read books and how we're used to reading it, like a sentence level or a paragraph level to the human eye. So I think that's really exciting, but it definitely does require a lot of customization, a lot of configuration, and a lot of learning and kind of that clinical loop. It's not as simple as saying, oh, we used to summarize a medical record manually, now we're just going to throw it into ChatGPT, it's all going to be done for us and we're off on our way. I think we're very far from that, and I also would caution people with that, because then you're relying 100% on, kind of a generative model to give you the outcome that actually hasn't been trained in hundreds or thousands or millions of medical records. So I think that ability to use these technologies, and coming back to the first question we spoke about, it's going to help people do things quicker and smarter and better, but it's not going to fully replace it. And if you do want it to fully replace, just like move forward with caution, because this is, at the end of the day, someone's medical record. This is important information that has to be able to stand up in court. And if you want to put full trust into it, then absolutely. But I think there's a lot of complexities that have to be considered around it.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
go. Yeah, just to add to that as well, it's also understanding that there's multiple parts to the whole. It's not just one model that's generative. It's essentially looking at what are you trying to achieve, and then actually having the data, as Jenna alluded to. So it's actually quite a complex undertaking. And I think if we look forward, we're at a really interesting time where, everyone loves the fact that like a ChatGPT can like give you the answer perfectly. It's a do-all. But then on the other side, there's a lot of concern that if I give you my data, are you going to take that trade secret and then when someone searches it, it goes over to that individual? So there's this really weird trade-off of no one wants to give the right data from a medical standpoint, and also there's compliance and HIPAA-related issues with this. But it's also everyone just wants it to work perfect as a silver bullet. So, I don't think it's quite what everyone thinks it is. I think it's very powerful, it's very impressive, but there's a lot of continual undertakings that have to kind of be invested into that to make it to the next level.
So like we said earlier, leveraging that tool, but with heavy human interaction, right? A lot of human input and telling it what to do and where. And we're a long way from having some sort of sentient robot cleaning my kitchen, right? Okay.
Exactly.
Maybe there are those robots. I've seen people have these robots now.
Oh yeah. Well,
the floors.
I take it. I know, rather than paying my cleaning.
So, in litigation and personal injury cases, time is always of the essence. Attorneys have billable hours. They're tightly driven by schedules, and obviously so are the medical professionals as well. So I was curious, why is it important for Wisedocs to stream those workflows for the medical experts and the attorneys?
Yeah, I would say it really comes down to like higher value work, right? So do we want attorneys to be focused and paralegals focused on back office admin scheduling tasks, or do we want them to actually be in the legal research and the analysis? And preparing depositions and memorandums and understanding pre-trial in the case itself to win the case. I think that's really the outcome here. If we can kind of figure out where the lower value tasks are and kind of move those out of the way so that we focus on what's high value, that you just get better outcomes, better outputs, and better results.
That's kind of go ahead, Ron.
Go ahead. I was going to say, and those index organized records also help when they're in deposition all the way through testimony. It really makes the ability to find the information that they need quickly a lot easier. And that's what we've heard and seen.
Yeah, I think it really does come down to that. It's also, to be organized and make sure that it's bulletproof when, you're sitting there and say, the judge is saying, I don't understand why this is where it is. Show me page 56. And things are disorganized and your story falls apart. So when you have that kind of bulletproof and it's ironclad and you can hyperlink right to where you need to see it, you can immediately understand what you're presenting and you have all of the resources to support that opinion. That's key, right? You don't want to be off step and kind of taken off guard because everything just falls apart at that point.
Yeah. With what you mentioned before about higher value stuff that the attorneys and paralegals can do, it's a very similar mission to what to Homestead Experts, right? Our mission here is to save attorneys time, right? You guys could be doing higher level stuff. Paralegals couldn't be doing higher level stuff. So I think that there's some symbiotics there as far as our mission goes. So
absolutely.
Last question, guys, and then we're gonna be able to wrap this up. With this new wave of technology and the insurtech and legal tech sector, what do you think is next for this sector in this industry?
I think the generative AI wave, we're just getting started with this. I think that this has only come into fruition and really come into the limelight over the past couple of months. And I think that there's a lot more to ride out when it comes to generative AI and like what that can do when it comes to medical records and medical software and technology in this industry. And then from there, I think that the question that we get asked a lot, and again, if we were talking about this a few years ago, would we have thought that technology can do what it does now? But a lot of people are starting to ask about kind of clinical opinions and clinical insights. And, can AI get to a point where it can give an opinion? I don't know yet, but I do know that we have a lot of data in the market right now to be able to make predictive decisioning and use analytics to be able to predict the future. And I think what we're going to see is how do we actually leverage the data that is already available to us and then pair that with best-in-class technology to make some of those kind of more accurate predictions on the future, whether that's the future of the case or a future of an outcome or a future of what might be expected in this specific personal injury case in this location with this type of injury. And how do we surface that information earlier and quicker in the ecosystem? So I think that's something that is going to be more and more interesting now that technology is available and can kind of see through all of that.
That was an incredibly exciting answer, and based on Connor's nodding, I think he agreed with every last word. Yeah, that's exciting stuff, and we look forward to that part if you guys gain that access. I think that would be a value added for our experts, right? If we got the records back and there's a quick little summary and a little bit of a direction for the experts. So look forward to the future. Look forward to working with Wisedocs a lot more in the future. I want to just say thank you, Jenna. Thank you, Connor, for joining us today. And we're going to wrap up. And thank you guys for watching. Have a nice day.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks so much.
Great to see you again.
Likewise.